everybody. This is my first actual video recording. Technically it is my second because I had previously recorded myself for about an hour today during my lunch break, and it was awesome, and it also didn't technically get recorded, so I have to kind of start this first recording over again. The first time that I did it though, earlier today, I'm basically gonna say what I said before, but it's gonna have a different harmonic, obviously, and will probably, of course, be perfect as it is, as this is gonna be my first video. And by perfect as it is, I mean like everyone was meant to see this video and not the last video. Where was I going with that? So there's a lot of things I want to talk about, and it's kind of going to incorporate every single type of recording that I plan on recording in the future, and I'll get into that in a moment. But I had something really awesome to say, and maybe it'll come to me later. So first and foremost, my name, if I didn't already say, is Caleb. It's Caleb King, and this is really the beginning of my sort of exposure, and really it's the beginning of something that I've been wanting to do for a very long time. If anyone has been following my work, which more than likely the case is that you haven't been, except for a few people here and there mixed in with some family members, I have for about 3 years created 9 blogs. I use one of them, but I keep restarting them because I am a perfectionist to the max, and B, I love creating things anew. I like clean slates. I like to, begin anew from nothing. And also I have had a pattern that's kind of dissolving very, very quickly now, of not being good enough. And so this is actually what I was going to allude to earlier when I kind of blanked out there, which is the fact that I have been kind of feeling that I'm not good enough to sort of express myself in this manner, in this not like next level, but for me it's really the next level on everything that I've been doing, because I've just been behind the scenes, right? You don't see me, you just see the expressed words of what I've been talking about through my blogs, and I've been doing that for 3 years, and on and off, obviously. And you just my face wasn't there. Like maybe my profile picture was there of me looking out to the distance in Brooklyn, but it's not ultimately where I want it to be. And where I want to be is not here now, which is not the greatest thing, right? We probably want to be where we are now, to an extent. And what I mean by that is that these recordings and all this stuff, I have a vision of where I want to be, just like anyone, and that's kind of what I'm alluding to. So while this is fantastic that I get to, and sorry about the darkness, except not really, because I like it to be darker, but I don't like the light in this room, and behind you I have these little seashells that are encased into little white Christmas lights. A cool story behind that: I found them in my grandparents' old barn, and I don't know if it was theirs, but it was in a box labeled beach decor, or beach sunset decor, something kind of along the lines of the beach, obviously, where there was a seagull coasters and everything, and I found these seashells and they're kind of like glued over these lights, and they're really cool. And I found them in this barn when my uncle from California, who's now from Tennessee, was kind of exploring with me. Him and Shelly, who are both awesome and very fun. Anyways, that's why the lighting is the way it is, and I don't mind it, and I hope you don't. So the recording of a video is kind of, I would say, like the third level and final step of this type of expression. And there's lots of different expressions that I plan on doing and publicizing. But I went from just typing to then just having a vocal recording where I would just speak and speak and speak. And I only began that like last week, and 2 weeks ago I thought it would be like months before I would even become comfortable with speaking out loud. And last week when I started speaking out loud, my very first vocal recording, I started the recording with like a very, very shaky and not confident voice. I was just, it was like, what am I talking about? Sort of like throughout the beginning, and then I kind of like stepped into my flow, especially because I had something specific that I was going to talk about, and I had like a questionnaire that I answered, and I went into like details of what that was, and I told stories and whatnot. And yeah, I was just very shy. And at that point, I was just like, well, ultimately, I would like to record videos of myself, and all throughout blogging. That's what I like mentioned here and there throughout these 3 years. Is like I'll get to this point of recording myself, actually. And going back to last week, where I just did not think that I would record like my actual face, and I'll tell you a little bit on why there's been like so much resistance, because everyone has it, right? But it's a little deeper for me, I think, and obviously not at this point, but the thoughts on like when I would do that were again like months off. But it only took a week before I was able to do it, and then I did it for like an hour today. And this is just too important for me not to then do it again for the second time or first time, right? For you here now. So that's just very exciting for me. And I was very shy as a kid. I got along with everyone, right? But I would never let anyone in, and that's something that I'm processing too right now. Everything's at a very like fast pace in terms of growth and transmutation and kind of expansion of consciousness. And that's the next thing. For anyone listening to this, most of my work is esoteric, like probably more than most would express, which then plays in part into my fear of expressing it, right? Because it's out there, it's it's not normal. But even if I were to talk about normal stuff, right, just like the everyday things that everyone is going to experience, which is what I do too, and I think it's important, I still had that resistance. Expressing myself in any way, there was just so much blockage, and then it was tied in the fact that I was closed. I didn't want to let anyone in, so even as people got close to me, I would express more, but then I would not express it in a way or as much that would allow the other person to really see who I was. And so those two blocks have been, relevant all throughout my life. And even when I was like 5, 6, and 7, I recognized that. And I thought to myself, if I dropped that fear, like in that age, I was like, everyone would love me, because I knew if I was just myself, then everyone would be laughing with me, and I laughed with kids, of course, but it was it it was like I knew my potential at that time of like getting past my fears in a way. And that stuck with me forever, right? Um, and so going into another layer of expression, the number one thing I would say that I fear expressing was my voice, which is why I, figured it'd take a long time to express vocally. And then the next thing was being seen, and I allude to this in terms of like darker pasts, I think, where I just, growing up, I'm a very elusive, or had been a very elusive person. I like ghost everyone, and I would like blink in and out of existence. Like I would just show up at places, and everyone, like all the time, and anyone, if you went to school with me, you know exactly what I'm talking about. Where I just kind of like show up, and everyone's just like, what the fuck are you doing? And I convinced the entire school twice in 1 year that I was leaving and like moving because it was based on a truth, but it was technically a lie. And so I had fun with that, but I'm pretty sure it was directed and reflected from the pattern of just not wanting to be seen. And so here I am being seen, and then it's mixed in with the fact that it's related to like esoteric stuff, and the stuff that I believe in, even for spiritual people, is kind of out there, and it's becoming, or it's out there for me in a sense for myself as well, because I don't have certain experiences that a lot of people do when they do talk about this out there stuff. And what I mean by that, I'll share a story of synchronicity, which is also what my work is kind of not mainly about, but it's devoted to generating synchronicity for myself so that I can believe in the stuff that I'm talking about that I ultimately know, which has led me to do the things that I do and study the things that I study. I'm bridging a gap between my belief system of what I've been taught is real and what I innately know and logically have come to the conclusion is real, so to speak. And so going back to the story, I am doing a journey, a financial journey, which is probably guaranteed the main reason that I have just like opened up and can now talk like I am now, and I'm going to publish it, right? Or at least I think I'm going to. This is my first time, but I felt confident with my last video that I was sad that it was, it didn't save, because it was actually, let me check right now to see. Okay, it's recording. Yeah, I started off the recording saying I hope this saves and it just didn't. And I was so nervous to start. I sat there in like a booth at work at lunch, and it took me like 5 minutes to like procrastinate to even start the video. And at the end of it, I was just like, that was awesome, So here I am. And so the journey that I'm on is from an app called Silvana, which is a spiritual app, and it's probably one of the most amazing apps out there. I think it's like a phenomenal reflection of where we actually are in terms of the collective consciousness, and what we are accepting as a whole, so to speak. And there's plenty of reasons why, but basically it's an app that's practically free that allows anyone to take in many types of guided meditations from like the most elite healers in the world. And I've met some elite healers, and I've done a lot of retreats and meditations and um, programs, and I basically like maxed myself out. And there's no maxing oneself out, so to say, but I've seen it all, but definitely haven't seen it all, if that makes sense. And this app is just like like it was just incredible, and I found it through. I'm going to be talking about two individuals for a little bit here, because that they're just like the most amazing people in my life right now that I've never met, but I'm kind of like being guided through on this journey. But then the person that led me to the journey, and that I'm gonna share the example with in a moment, is Ashtara Ren. She used to be known as Bora Yoon. She changed her name, and she's like she's like co-producer of the creative design or something. Sorry, I'm kind of butchering that, but she's heading a major part of this app that is just like absolutely amazing. And the program that I'm in is led by Regan Hillier. And so a couple weeks ago, like 3 weeks ago, I had saved one of Ashtara's videos, which at the time it was for a serious reading for like June of 2018. But I just like felt intuitively guided to take this recording and just like save it for watch later. And the other night I was like browsing Netflix for something, because I just watched The Dark Crystal, and nothing popped out. The Dark Crystal is kind of about Ascension, actually. So that's why I watched it. And then I got into Gaia.com, and I was going to watch some videos, but PayPal wasn't like working, like nothing would work. And so I went to YouTube and was going to view some kind of, uplifting thing. And I was just like, oh, I remember I saved a video from Bora's old stuff. So I watched that, and it was like one of the most synchronistic videos that I've like ever seen. Like almost all of her stuff is, but at this time almost every single piece was related to what I was going through in terms of like what she was saying, and then what I experienced the next morning. And it kind of blew my mind. Where was I going with that? I have no idea. I'll return to that, but just hold that moment. I watched a synchronistic video of Ashtara Ren, and it's related to Regan's work as well. So that's me. And so what I want to share here is what I will be doing, and what I've kind of like come to conclude that I am here to do. And the number one thing is sharing one's journey on a very intimate and as transparent as possible manner, but also on like a day-to-day basis, where it's not just like here is how I got to where I am, and this is my story. It's more on the like real-time version of this is my story today, and this is my story tomorrow, and I find that it's so important to do that, especially now, and especially for people who are esoteric and know this stuff. And when I say esoteric, sorry, I didn't really introduce myself. Okay, so let me take a step back. I studied out of curiosity, really, and it's just like my innate nature. When I was like 5, I looked up at the clouds and I tried to figure out, how the universe started, and I couldn't figure it out. So that's kind of like been my drive throughout all of life. And I know where I was going with it. I'm ultimately a logical person, right? And I've come to this point through like logical studies, but I got here through like a saturation of everything that's like scientific, and I wasn't not spiritual, but I was like born an atheist, right? So things just, when they don't make sense, I try to find a sense of them, and I always go to truth specifically. And I basically saturated my field of knowledge with, quantum physics, got into metaphysics, but all of the personal development stuff that it could be considered real to the masses, right? And I read everything that was like top notch, like the highest studies that are available to the public. Of course, there's stuff out there that I didn't have access to, or maybe I could have, but didn't find it. And ultimately, I found that there was clearly more at play. Because when I grew up, I believed in like esoteric stuff, but I was mainly focused on awareness. Because I think that kind of precedes everything, and ultimately it just goes back to that, And so, coming from that point of investigating everything, I found that most of the stuff that I believe in, and I'll kind of like list them, when we die, our spirit leaves and we continue. That's like almost like a core truth that I've come to believe in. Really didn't in the past, but I've gone into star systems, star seeds, star children, indigo children, rainbow children, crystal children, angels. I never believed in angels, now I do. All of the dimensions, 1 through 12. There's more than that. It keeps on going. Channelings, extraterrestrials related to star systems. I'm kind of butchering like the esoteric stuff, right? But what I'm saying is that I've gotten into this, and I have logically concluded that it is real, and there's like no way that it isn't. And I don't believe it on a level that I would like to, which has led me to that synchronicity thing that I'm talking about. Creating experiences for myself that are like unbelievable to me, and when I intentionally create that, it helps me to believe it, and that's part of my work, and I do it for others. At the moment, there's only been like 2 people that it's worked for, but those 2 people are the only 2 people that actually like really got into my work, and the main one is my cousin Rachel, who is amazing and is my like #1 fan, and we like never were close growing up. We never had any conflicts or anything, but we both kind of closed ourselves off in a way. But she was more closed off from our like immediate family, and I wasn't. I'm kind of like the opposite in a way, where like in the immediate family, lots of people kind of like come to me, and I think that is that has definitely played a part into why I am more resistant to getting close with people, because I know that people will like really kind of connect with me, and that has been emotionally, energetically draining, right? So the way I share my journey is the everyday thing, and the reason why I think it's so important, especially for people who have like thousands of followers, but really and for the esoteric people, but even if you have 0 followers and don't believe in any of this, it's still important. The reason why I think it's more important for the esoteric and the people who are more influential to do this kind of work is because, like, coming from my perspective as someone who like really is encouraged and inspired by you, I want to and really enjoy connecting at that humanness level, like on the day-to-day thing. Like, I want to know what you had for breakfast, you know what I mean? Not so that, like, let's say you had something that's not healthy. At a certain point in my time, I would take what you had for breakfast, if it was unhealthy, as like a way to justify me eating it. right? I'd then eat it and be like, it's good because they're doing it. That's not why I think it'd be good as a whole, and for like me now, or anyone, right? It doesn't have to be people who are lower or just like people following you. It's just like literally anybody. It'd be good for them to see it, because then like when they do it, or they they cave in and then they do it, right? Maybe they're on like a health spree and then they go back to not eating healthily, or take that and apply it to working out or breath work or meditation, whatever it is, right? It allows that person to relax. It allows that person to sort of calm down and realize that it's not the end of the world. For me, it's more on the extreme for that, because I'm a perfectionist and I have to be like the best at everything. But it I too just want to know what you're doing. I'm so curious. And going back to like Ashtara and Regan, I would love to know what they're doing every day. There are times with, and I'm mainly following Ashtara at the moment because she got me into all of this, into the Solvana thing, not spirituality. I kind of like found her, and I actually didn't like her at first. She was too like, in one of her videos she was kind of like spacey. She was just like she was doing a reading, and I think it was like a Lyran star seed reading, and it was in like January, I think. And I found her just by looking that up in YouTube, because I had discovered a little while ago that I was probably Lyran. Again, I don't have memories of it, and this will like link to actually Ashtara and the video that I was previously talking about in the beginning, where I kind of like trailed off. But in this one in January, she was kind of like, she was giving a reading, and she was very spacey, she's like she would just like space out sometimes, and that to me kind of threw me off. But what she was reading was very resonant with me. I was like, oh, this is actually pretty cool. And then I kind of like watched more videos, and then I ended up like really liking her, and I realized that her awareness is actually, and I think I said this in a vocal recording, her awareness is very, very high, and her knowledge of everything is very high too. And those things are different. You can be very aware and not knowledgeable at all, or you could know almost everything about this stuff and be like, I mean, the esoteric work, if you know everything about it, you're probably aware, but I'm saying like knowledge and awareness are separate, right? So you could have an abundance of information and can like logically speak about something, but if you don't have an awareness, so to speak, it I don't know, you get what I'm saying. So her latest video had tons of synchronicity for me in like many different ways. One of them of which is like the week before I was watching her, Emerald kept coming up a lot for some reason. And I made a playlist on Spotify, and there was like songs that I put into that playlist that were like had like Emerald on them, which that's why actually I named the playlist Emerald. But anyways, there was like Emerald just kept coming up, and if you're familiar with Thoth and the Emerald tablets, there's a deep link there. And within this reading from like June 2018, it was a Sirius star system reading, and she spoke about invoking Thoth, but also about embodying golden and white light into a wheel into your sacral chakra, into transmuting this stuff into financial abundance. And then the next morning, like in less than like 10 hours, because it was like right before I was going to bed, it was like almost 12 a.m. Actually, 12 a.m. ended exactly when, now that I think about it, at the end of that meditation or reading that Ashtara gave, or Bora at the time, it became 12 a.m. and that's when I got a notification from Irene in the group from Solvana for Regan's meditation, which which was like released, right? Because there's 5 days of doing this meditation, but it was released publicly to me, like it was notified, so I think it was published a little bit before, to do in the morning, and I did it, and it was the same fucking thing that Ashtara told us to do, which was having the golden and white energy cycle through it with the sacral chakra. And then Regan talks about taking, especially like in your gut, and this is a financial journey that I'm doing through Solvana too, so it's relating to this abundance thing. And then Regan takes you through a visualization of taking the darker energies of the financial blocks, the distortions in your energetic system, and actually into your physical body, because that's what happens, right? It's if there's spiritual or memories or any type of trauma or any sort of block, you can basically pinpoint it down to physicality, right? And she took the darker energies, Regan did, in the meditation, and she turned it into a golden and white ball, and it was like related specifically to the gut, and then she spun it, and it was just the same fucking thing that Ashtara was talking about. And for me, that mixed in with the emerald things that have been happening in my life. Also, she spoke about Sirius and Arcturian links, I think, like specifically Sirian because it was a Sirian reading, but then Arcturian like heavily. And I had just like received downloads from the Arcturians. Like I specifically went in to guided meditations from them to contact extraterrestrials and to channel. So I'm now devoted to kind of learning how to channel, because if I channel, A, I think it'd be cool, period, but B, it would increase my belief system of all this stuff. And this takes me all the way back to what I was originally talking about, and that is Ashtara mentions, Bora, that it's so cool, and this is at the end of her Emerald Dolph Sirius June 2018 reading, that it's so cool for her to really connect and resonate with her followers. But she says it with like a preface of, it's so cool that we can remember all of these memories of living in different star systems, and that's not me. I don't remember anything of that, I don't channel, I don't hear anything. Recently I've been like seeing like sacred geometry and like really cool like fantasy landscapes that are just beautiful and like super colorful, which is great, but it's not that tangible evidence that I keep talking about, and I want to really know. And sorry for the noise, the heater, the radiator in my room is just like way too hot, so I have to open the window, and I'm on an avenue in Brooklyn, and so there's just so much noise all the time. But anyways, yeah. So who am I and what I'm about? I would just say that I'm a pretty aware person who has now a unbiased field of knowledge with this stuff, because I got to this logically. I didn't, and again, I wasn't like super logical, and I'm very open-minded and always was, but I question everything, and actually questioning everything has led to me kind of having like a shaky foundational sort of being. Like I like question myself all the time, and that goes into self-doubt. And actually a year ago or 2 years ago, I was like not even in my field at all. I was so confident. I was overly confident, and I had an ego, and I was arrogant. I was like 20, and I went through like a 6-month state of bliss, like real fifth dimensional living. I think it felt like that. And I could only remember like 3 days, and it was in a row, that I wasn't like that. But when I was in it, I was aware of what was happening, and I was just processing it, right? And then I got to the end of it, and I was playing piano and I was angry, and I ended up playing a beautiful piece, and I was just like elated. And then I continued to be blissful for like 6 months, literally 6 months of just being incredibly happy, and I was manifesting everything, and I was breathing deeply, and I was, eating healthily, and I was doing it all, so to speak, right? And then I got sort of like attacked gradually and then like intensely by like dark negative energy that was expressed through, and I don't blame these people at all, my friend Kevin and my sister Chloe. And I allowed it to happen. I take full responsibility of what happened, because like I allowed myself to be influenced, and I started to smoke, and I started to drink, and I would smoke every night, and I would like drink every day and night, but I was still elated, and with that ego, I'm like, I could fucking do this, I can be like drunk and high whenever I want to, and nothing's gonna happen. And it slowly got to the point where I also took Molly and drank, and I didn't respect my friend's boundaries at all, and I lost his trust and my trust in myself, to a point where it like scarred me in a way. It was like 2 years ago, and I went from the peak of my life to like the bottom, and then it like sort of got worse. Like I hit a bottom, and then I kept like getting deeper in a way, because I kept smoking and drinking. I was just like, it was terrible. It was just awful, and like I was seriously in a low point. I was like, the stress, because I was in a city, and I was a condominium closing agent, so it was like high end stress with work, and it's like a super young age, and like I let thresholds breach, and I was just like, it was terrible, but it was amazing in a way, and from that point, I lost faith in myself. I lost that confidence, which was great, and I lost that way of living, which was conscious, and I, made it a point to meditate every morning, which really just escalated everything. And I recorded myself, not what I'm doing now, because this is like focused, and I have a plan, and I'm rapidly growing, but like I was comfortable with recording myself, and I was just like I said, my ego was just like way out there. So it's funny to like look back now, because I'm being very careful, and I'm also not being careful in the sense where I don't want to be too careful and not do stuff, because I've been complacent for a while. And knowing that I was at this place for so long, mixed in with my like lack of self-worth in a way, and lack of self-trust, I've just kind of like been living through life like wondering when I'm gonna start doing shit, so to speak. So here I am doing stuff, and yeah, so part of my work, there's the day-to-day stuff. Then there's so there's 3 layers now, but there's so many different layers. I don't even know how to like concretely say what it is, because I don't know what it is yet. But I talked about the synchronicity. I've talked about the